Every week, at least a few people reach out to me to tell me how much they're enjoying our online worship services. They love the music from all 4 of our sites. They're blessed by the chance to hear all 5 of our pastors sharing God's Word. They're encouraged by the opportunity to gather together with the Trinity family in a way that is safe in the midst of this pandemic. Online worship has been a real blessing to so many people. But they almost always follow those comments with something like, "But I can't wait until we can be physically together again." I totally get it. One of my great joys in ministry is visiting and preaching at all 4 of our worship sites. I have friends that I love to see at every location. It is inspiring to see people who live in different places, enjoy different worship styles, and who serve their different communities in different ways, all working together to help people look, live, and love more like Jesus. I love our Trinity family, and I can't wait until we can gather together at all 4 of our sites for worship. Now, a little over a week ago, our governor surprised everyone by dramatically easing the restrictions on churches gathering for worship. Up until then, gatherings for worship were limited to 10 or less under our present phase here in the state of Illinois. Even under the next phase, which we hope happens in July, we would have been limited to gatherings of 50 or less. And that rule would have stayed in place until there was a cure for COVID-19 or an effective vaccine. Now, under the new guidelines, 10 or less is still the recommended number, but churches are now considered essential and can have indoor gatherings of 25% of building capacity or up to 100 people, whichever smaller. That's good news, right? No, maybe not. You see, with that new gathering number came 9 pages worth of guidelines on how our state feels we can gather and be safe. 9 pages. Some make sense, like social distancing and cleaning the church between services. Some seem a little crazy, like the pastor preaching from behind a plexiglass wall, using only pre-recorded music, and everyone sitting on disposable sheets of paper. Honestly, some guidelines seem a little crazy, but when you do some research, they might just be important, like refraining from congregational singing. Here's the bottom line. Even though according to the state of Illinois we can gather in person to worship, there's considerable concern that it may not be safe to do that. Not yet. Not until the number of COVID-19 cases has dropped more. Not until we know more about exactly how the virus is transmitted. Not until we're sure large indoor gatherings with singing are safe. Now, our pastoral team has talked a lot and prayed a lot. We believe we have a plan for moving forward that is safe and God-pleasing. It takes into account the best research and recommendations from the medical community and our local government. It's honest about what we don't know right now, and what hopefully becomes more clear as time goes on. We are really excited to share that plan with you today.
First of all, we want to say this. Online worship is here to stay. It is still the safest option for us as a church, and for members of the Trinity family that are in the high-risk population, it may be their best option for months to come. Also, there are a number of people who have connected with our church through online worship and who live far enough away that they may never attend a physical Trinity site. We love that they are also a part of the Trinity family, and we want to encourage them to stay connected with us in the future. So for the next few months, our online worship will continue as it is now. Our sites will rotate leading worship each week by providing our worship music, prayers, and other essential elements of our services. Each week, one of our Trinity pastors will unpack God's Word through the message, and ultimately, we hope and pray these services will continue to help people look, live, and love more like Jesus, and that they will continue to be a way for you to respond to God's grace with your own worship and praise. Communion will continue to be offered the first weekend of the month as a part of these services. And once in-person worship is available each week at all 4 of our sites, the online option might change somewhat, but it will still be there. We will have a few issues to figure out once we use the resources God has given us to make both in-person worship and online church available. But we promise it will be the same high quality, relevant, and meaningful worship you've come to experience during this time.
I'm excited that our online worship is going to continue. And I'm even more excited to share with you that in the months of July and August, we're going to host outdoor worship services at all 4 of our Trinity sites. We're going to do 2 outdoor services each month on the dates you see on the screen right now. The times will vary by location, and we'll have a lot more information to share as we get closer to the first outdoor worship date. But these gatherings will be a great way for us to gather in person to worship. We can safely social distance, but we can also sing and celebrate together. One thing that's clear in the present research is that the virus is much harder to transmit when you're outdoors. If we take safety precautions like social distancing and wearing masks, we can pray, sing, study, and even enjoy together with little fear of putting ourselves or others at risk. I can't wait to be together for worship again in person. These outdoor services will be exciting. But remember, if the weather is bad or if you just aren't comfortable going out for a gathering like this, the online option for worship will still be there every single week.
So that's our plan so far. Online worship will be available every week moving forward, and outside worship will take place twice a month in July and August. But I know what your next question is going to be. What about indoor in-person worship? When will that start again? Well, to help us answer that question, last week, senior staff from Trinity gathered for a practice indoor service following all of the state of Illinois' health guidelines. We wore masks and were screened at the door for symptoms and had temperature checks. We used only pre-recorded music with no congregational singing. We sat in assigned seats to ensure that we were at a safe distance from one another. We staggered our arrivals and our departures so that we weren't tempted to socialize before or after the service. There was no coffee or donuts. And other than quietly saying the Lord's Prayer together, there were no group recitations. There was no passing of the offering plate. There were no bulletins. The worship area was cleaned before and after the service, and each person sat on a disposable piece of paper to ensure that the pews also remained clean and sanitary. The CDC and our state health officials would have been really proud of the measures we had taken, and our liability insurance company would have approved. But it raised some questions for us. The first question was, can we really worship that way? And our honest answer as a team is, yeah, we could. There came a moment in the service when all the restrictions just kind of faded away and God and His Word were central. But the other question was, is it necessary for us to worship that way right now? And again, our answer as a team was, no, it's not. Because of the online and outdoor worship experiences, we've decided not to host indoor in-person worship this summer. Our hope and our prayer is that by September, things will be different. We hope that and believe that it would be amazing if a vaccine was available and if cases of the virus have gone down dramatically. But even if a vaccine isn't available, we hope that by September we'll have some clearer answers to key questions, like, are masks necessary? Is it possible to sing as a congregation indoors? Does a pastor really have to stand behind a plexiglass barrier and wear a mask while he's preaching? We hope that by having answers to these questions, we will know more about how we can safely be together, so that we can host worship services that most, if not all, of our Trinity family would feel comfortable attending. Now, we recognize that some other churches have decided to make different choices, and we respect that. And if we discover that we're being too careful and that indoor worship is safer than we think, then we are going to revisit this decision. But for now, our plan is to begin in-person indoor worship in the safest way possible at all 4 of our sites, starting in the month of September.
Now we realize that this plan may be a disappointment to some of you who are hoping to get back to worship as normal sooner rather than later. And we get it. But the reality is, normal when it comes to worship and many other aspects of our lives may be a long way off. So let me give you some encouraging news. Despite the pandemic, despite not gathering in person on the weekends, God's family here at Trinity continues to live out the mission that He has given us. We continue to gather together online and worship Him as He has called us to do. And the encouraging thing is that our worship gatherings on the weekend now, using just conservative estimates, tell us there are more people gathering with us now than before the pandemic. Our small groups, they continue to meet. They continue to meet in platforms like Zoom online, where they're gathering together around God's word, holding one another accountable. They're groups that are growing, inviting new people. New groups have started. Groups that were meeting every other week are now meeting weekly. Connections are happening around God's word. God's people continue to serve. We serve through our care team and through our community impact team in ways that we never have before. And God's people continue to give generously to the mission that He's called us to do here at Trinity and around the world. God continues to do amazing things through us. So while we wait until September, and while that may seem like a long time off, God's mission does not wait. It continues to move on. And so we continue to listen to Him and follow Him as He continues to shape us more into the image of His Son as we gather together for worship, as we gather in small groups, as we serve one another and in the community, as we hold one another accountable, as we give generously from the resources that God has given us, as we lead one another, and as we share the good news of Jesus Christ with the world around us, just like we've always done. Well, maybe not just like we've always done, but doing so joyfully, expectantly, and empowered by the love and grace of God, just as He's always done.
So let me review. Here's the plan. Online worship continues now and always. Some form of online worship is here to stay. Outdoor worship will happen at all 4 of our sites twice a month in July and August. And indoor, in-person worship will begin weekly in September, following the best safety guidelines we have at that time. We believe this is the best plan for our church family moving forward. We've carefully considered all the information provided by health and government officials. We've surveyed and talked to our Trinity family, and most importantly, we've prayed and sought God's will together. We believe this plan is God's will for our church family at this time. Now, it could be that God finds a new way to put a new plan before us at some point over the next 3 months. Or new information about the virus or treatments could come forward. If those things happen, we'll listen to God and we'll make adjustments to the plan. But right now, we feel good about where God has led us, and we believe He will bless these next 3 months together. I'm so proud of our Trinity family. I can't wait to see you all in person again. Until that time, stay safe and healthy. Focus on God's plan for your life, and keep praying and trusting in Him. Let me close with these words from 2 Timothy 1:7. They've been on my mind and my heart a lot recently. The Apostle Paul wrote to a young pastor named Timothy, and God speaks to us today. Remember that God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. God's blessings to you all.